You have probably noticed that the degree of the difficulty has raised a little bit in the latest videos, and I would like to keep it like this. In this way, you'll be even more ready for the exam in order to pass it. All right, so for this example, I would like to discuss about NSGs, about subnets, how NSGs are connected to the subnets, and how actually they apply, how traffic actually goes when you have an NSG. So your company has, in this case, your company has a subscription. It has one virtual network, VNet1, and this one includes 3 subnets, 1, 2, and 3. You also have created network security groups. And so we want to present, so the subnet 1 has 3 virtual machines connected, 1, 2, and 3. And subnet 2 and 3, each of them has 2 virtual machines connected. Then you have 3 network security groups, 1, 2, and 3. NSG1 is associated with subnet 1, NSG2 is associated with VM1, and NSG3 is associated with subnet 3. All right, so this is the input that we have, and you also have 3 questions. So for incoming traffic to VM1, NSG1 applies before NSG2. So NSG1, which is associated with subnet 2, applies before NSG2, which is associated with VM1. If this, and you'll have to answer with yes or no. Then for traffic between VM1 and VM2, only NSG2 applies. And for traffic between VM6 and VM7, NSG3 applies. So in this case, the traffic between VM6 and VM7, you only have to consider NSG3. All right, so if you want to find the answer by yourself, stop the video here. If not, I'm going to show you the right answers on the next slide. And the first one and the third one is correct. The first question and the third one are correct. And the second one is wrong. Let's see why. So for the first question, for incoming traffic to VM1, NSG1 applies before NSG2. Actually, incoming traffic rules in NSG1 are processed before the incoming traffic rules for NSG2 because NSG1 is associated to the subnet level. For inbound traffic, the rules are processed in NSG associated with the subnet first, and then all the rules in the NSG associated with the network interface are processed. For outgoing traffic, the rules in NSGs associated with the VM network interface are processed before NSG associated in the subnet level. So since now we are in incoming traffic, we will have the rules associated in NSG1 that are processed first, and then the rules that are mentioned in NSG2. For outbound traffic, the order is the opposite. So first you're going to have NSG2 and then you're going to have NSG1. For the second question, for the traffic between VM1 and VM2, both NSG1 and NSG2 apply. NSG2 applies for any traffic into or out of VM1. NSG1 applies for any traffic between the VMs in the subnet. So this is incorrect. It's not only NSG2 that applies. For the third question, only NSG3 applies because NSG rules apply for traffic into or out of a subnet and between VMs in a subnet. So you can define both inbound and outbound rules for NSGs. Let's check now the documentation, which provides very useful information. You're going to find it under how network security groups filter network traffic. And I present here a very similar situation to to the one that I have presented earlier. So they present 3 subnets. The first subnet has 2 NSGs, 1 and 2. The first one is associated to the subnet level. The second one is associated to VM1. Then we have subnet 2 with a VM, which has an NSG associated. And we also have subnet 3 with VM4, and there is no NSG. And they present how traffic goes for in the case of inbound traffic and in the case of outbound traffic. And you can see here, so for inbound traffic, Azure processes the rules in an NSG associated to a subnet first. So the NSG1 in this case. And then if there is one, and then the rules in an NSG associated to the network interface, if there is one. So in this case, so for VM1, the security rules in NSG1 are processed, and then the ones in NSG2. They present another situation. You can read it by yourself. I will not go through it because I think it's a detail, and it doesn't show for maybe most probably it will not show up for the exam, but you can go through it if you want to go deeper into the subject. For VM2, the rules in NSG1 are processed because VM2 is also in subnet 1, so VM2 it will obey to the rules mentioned in NSG1. And VM2 doesn't have an NSG associated, so all the traffic will go through NSG1. For VM3, since there is an NSG2 associated to it, it will obey to the rules mentioned in it. There is no NSG mentioned at the subnet level, so there will be no rule processed before the rules mentioned in NSG2. And for VM4, traffic is allowed to VM4 since there is no NSG mentioned at the subnet level or at the VM level. For outbound traffic, the rules processed are the other way around. So the NSG associated to network interface are processed first, and then the ones that are associated to the subnet level